The Untouchable Crew was literally an idea that was born from a situation that people were very unhappy with.
It was a contest, and I think the contest, the way it was set up, if I remember correctly, it was like the 6th best in Canada against the 6th best in the United States.
All these groups came together to perform on stage. It was the biggest thing ever.
It was at the Kinsman Fieldhouse. It was, I don't know, it seemed like back then thousands of people.
I remember the crush of people to get in.
We didn't think we were going to win, but we thought that we were going to this was our opportunity to make a splash, because all the people that mattered in this hip hop game, in this breakdancing game, they were going to be there. We had no aspirations of taking out Curtis Black and his crew. Come on, man. That's like a junior high basketball team taking on the Bulls. Like, there was no hope. But to be in the same tournament as them would be something you could talk about.
So this crew from Winnipeg, if I can remember correctly, I think they were called Tidal Wave.
I never heard of these cats before. I didn't even know there's black people in Winnipeg.
And I wouldn't say that they were great breakdancers. Like, we thought we were the tightest. So they weren't as good as we were on the floor, with popping, but they had some group moves that we'd never seen before.
They didn't have tight routines like us. We were very routine oriented, and that choreography that was very important. They didn't have a lot of that. They essentially had a number of people. They had a little bit of choreography, but they had a number of guys that could do things, right, and do them fairly well.
Like, they'd form a line behind each other, so everybody prepped behind each other's shoulders, and they would do this group tidal wave like this, where everybody's hand was attached to their elbows. So if you see it in a row, and they must have had a crew like 10 guys, so they would be like doing this thing going up and down, and it literally looked like this tidal wave moving in and around, and they did these intricate moves the way they moved with this tidal wave that nobody had ever seen before.
At the end of their show, it was bizarre. They had this white dude, looking like David Lee Roth with like tassels off. It was so not hip hop. Now at the time, things like Van Halen, that was prominent, right? But we wouldn't see that in that space. And this cat came out at the end, and all the guys were in a semicircle, and this little mini version of David Lee Roth would run into the hands of each one of these cats, and they would flip them in the air backwards. We were like, what is that?
And the judges went insane. They were just like, oh, tidal wave. But I remember thinking, going, oh my God, these guys, they suck. This is so stupid. And then they did the helicopter.
Where the one guy in the middle, and the one guy was hanging off the back, and the guy's legs came over here, and then the other guy had his arms on the guy's legs.
He's leaning back as the counterweight, and then as his legs stuck out, another guy was in front, and then it was moving around, and then you move your feet like you're pedaling, so it literally looked like this helicopter was spinning around.
The crowd went nuts. It was a simple move, The crowd just bit into it. Ah!
And the judges went insane because they'd never seen it before. But pound for pound, if it was a battle, we would have killed those guys.
We knew the move, but we thought it was too easy. So we didn't even think of doing it, And these guys do the move and they win with it.
Was it enough to win the competition? Certainly not. It was interesting and kitschy and a little different. Whatever, man. They won. And when they announced, as I remember, as they announced the winner, people were unhappy. There was grumbling. We were certainly shocked backstage, and I'm sure people were booing.
That was like a stain in off the back of my throat for years. Tidal wave. We never ever saw these guys again, ever.
They announced the winner, and the place just kind of went nuts, like booing.
I don't think anybody expected that.
It was something that disturbed the scene for sure.
I didn't see that anything that special about them.
It wasn't good. It was not good at all, because you can't come into our own barn and do this to us, man.
I think that was the catalyst to say, okay, we're used to competing against people in Edmonton. We're competing against people nationally, internationally now, right? How big do we want to go? How big can we go, right? And I think that was kind of the catalyst of, okay, let's get some groups together, let's get some people together, right? And let's make them untouchable.
Because we lost and we were going against people we didn't think had the same talent we had, we just said, okay, we have to do things bigger. And we cherry picked all the best people and just said, nobody's coming to our town again and winning nothing,
It was necessary. You had a group of guys that were really good at something and really didn't have an outlet.
This guy was a brainchild behind the Untouchable Crew. At some point, I think he felt the disappointment from this audience that this large group came in and took that prize away from more deserving people, mainly because they had the numbers, right? And so in his wisdom, he decided that he was going to pull together the best dancers from what he saw, right? And distill it into a group. And he was going to call it the Untouchable Crew.
We went over to Dean's house. Now, it might have been me, probably Ray Dean, maybe Alistair. I don't know at that time whether he came in there. And then it was just a few of us, about maybe half a dozen, and we discussed this super group. And I said, well, we're going to have to phone these guys. I said, Darren Jordan, and they're like our competition. I said, I don't know if they're going to want to join us.
Somebody said, yeah, we want you to be part of this. We're doing tryouts on such and such a day. And I'm like, I got my group. I'm thinking I got my group. Like, nah, you don't have to try out. Just come. You're in.
The criteria was tight. It was very tight. Like, you had to be like nobody else. Nobody else we see on TV, nobody else we see anywhere in Canada. And that's what we had. Those guys would come in and they would do moves that I'd never seen before.
Were there people who were really good that could do a lot of stuff? Yeah. But if they didn't have something in their repertoire that other people couldn't do, then they weren't going to be in the Untouchables. That just wasn't going to happen. So we knew what everybody could do in town, and we could do everything that they could do, but they couldn't do everything that we could do.
It was like being selected for the All-Stars, right? Being a rookie and selected for the All-Stars. And like all the people that mattered were in this group. All the people that you aspired to be like in terms of dancing, they were in the group. It was surreal.
And then you have like a reverence for these older guys, they're older than us and you know them, you've seen them around. Yeah, they got some talent and that kind of stuff. And yeah, you give them that respect, right? You've heard about them and then now you're close to them now. It's kind of like, you heard about Miles Davis, but now you're sitting next to Miles Davis. You know what I mean?
So how does hip hop arrive in Edmonton?
Well, for us, very early on, it was through VHS videotapes that were sent, to Curtis's house from his grandma.
Television would have been the primary source.
Growing up in the 70s, watching black people on TV was a new thing.
We heard it first, and then we started seeing it, right? And one person seen it, and then we'd all get together to try and figure out how to watch it again. Or we knew when it was going to be on. We'd all meet together to watch it, and it'd be like 10 of us watching it, and we were like, oh, wow, did you see that?
I do recall seeing it for the first time. It was on 2 television shows, and within a relatively short period of time, which was an indication that this thing was growing. It was on a show called That's Incredible, and it was also on a show called Ripley's Believe It or Not.
I saw a video of Buffalo gals go around the outside. Now that was probably the first time I saw some stuff on the floor. But when I first saw it, I said, okay, this is guys in New York street dancing, but these guys got to be gymnasts.
It's stuff we've never even seen before. Nobody gave us the warning, hey, this is coming out, watch out for this. It was just, you saw a video one day and you saw somebody do something and it was like, see this guy do that in this video?
I had a couple of buddies over, I think Alistair Matthews, one of them. So we tried to do what we saw these guys doing, right? We couldn't rewind or nothing, because that was it. Once you saw it, it was done.
Okay, did you catch that? Okay, and we'd self-teach. You know, that's the only way you could learn back then.
Somebody would remember the move goes like this. Somebody else would remember the move goes like this. And we put it together.
Videos were just coming out, and it was the video. They had this thing called Friday Night Videos. And on Friday nights, they would play all these videos. MTV wasn't even a thing yet.
Yeah, Friday Night Videos is where I saw the Buffalo Gals.
Shows like Soul Train,
Michael Jackson's famous, was it Motown or Motown?
The famous one with that. Right, they do the hat thing. Watching this guy slide across the floor moving backwards. Like, how did he do that?
Everybody saw that, and there was a huge shift when we actually visualized this.
He does the moonwalk for the first time, and then you spent the next 3 weeks trying to figure out how to do the moonwalk, right?
It was tough. We were always looking for footage, always, because that's how we got a lot of our moves. We had to figure out how to, you know, if you saw a commercial, Kurt would try, he had a VHS, he'd try to record it.
We started recording absolutely everything we could off TV. So I remember the New York City Breakers they did a performance at the Kennedy Center Awards, and it was a huge thing, and they went on and they did their thing. And then of course Flashdance came out, and now you got Flashdance, and the Rock City Crew was in Flashdance, right?
Like Flashdance only had like the tiniest little excerpt for breakdancing. Well, we went to that movie like 100 times just to see that little piece. I think a couple of the guys in the crew had gotten jobs working at the theater just so that they can sneak us in the back door so that we could just watch that and then leave.
And we went and saw it, I don't know how many times back in the day. Didn't always pay for those. But we snuck into some movie theaters, I'm sure, or stayed to watch it a second or third time. And it was for what, a 30-second shot of, New York City Breakers?
Beat Street kind of was the precursor, even though there was movies out before that. Beat Street was kind of the big kind of, I guess, push, if you will. People like Lionel Richie and the video All Night Long, and that because he was very, very popular at that point in time, and I don't think a lot of people seen pop locking before that.
And also, I think the fact that some of us traveled.
Dean Skog used to make trips to, let me see if I can remember. He had family in LA.
And we used to get records either from Monica's in Toronto, or we would get records from New York, or we'd get records from London, or from Los Angeles, or from San Francisco.
People would travel from Toronto or New York,
Washington, wherever, they would go places that had some kind of a hip hop culture or something happening, and they would come back with, some little trinkets that they picked up.
And they'd bring back these mixtapes. And it was like, someone would come, oh, he's got a mixtape, and then like, I don't know, 5 people coming over to someone's house on their BMX to listen to what is new in coming out of New York.
Some people, I spent the summer with my cousin. They come back and now they got this, they're doing something. What is that? Where? I was in LA, right? Or I was in New York.
So he would go down there and come back with some, a few moves. He would show guys, and then they'd pick it up, and then you'd go from there, right?
So much of it was not from TV, because we never had that opportunity, nor did we have that exposure to that hip hop scene from the East. So a lot of individuals would go there to the East and come back with a couple of golden nuggets, and then we would kind of augment, so to speak, and add to, subtract, and then we would turn that into our personal dance signatures, if I may.
Because you didn't have access, you were forced to be creative, right? So you have the fundamentals, the footwork, wave, all this basic. You have the fundamentals. And then you had to create things. You had to build on what was there, because there wasn't a lot to draw from. So a lot of breakers and a lot of poppers here in Edmonton, they developed their style and these really interesting moves out of necessity, because they didn't necessarily have the ability to turn on the TV at any given time or go down the road to watch somebody and we call it biting moves, right? Bite moves. Couldn't do that.
By the same token, in all parts of the city, there's other groups of people that are going through the same thing, and that's happening for them, right? I know, speaking with Darren Jordan, that happened for them, and you speak with other guys like Joey, and that happened for him, and all these guys are just kind of
becoming this thing simultaneously without knowing the other pockets. And then all of a sudden they start doing it at school, and then all of a sudden they start making crews.
If I'm trying to think why it got that big, just, I don't know. Anybody mention Sports World?
So we're standing here on the corner of 113th Avenue and 81st Street. Now, on any given Saturday evening, you would see a procession of people walking down this gravel trail beside the tracks to go across the street and roller skate at a place called Sports World Roller Skating Rink. And it was a cultural mecca for music and fashion, dancing a little bit, but primarily roller skating.
The be all and end all of youth, fun, and happiness.
I used to love Sports World. Sports World to me was just a place where I can go dance, listen to good music, and meet girls. That's what it was for me.
On the Saturday nights, if you wanted to see black people, or you wanted to hear this music, or you wanted to get that vibe, you went to Sports World.
I was one of the DJs there, myself and Mark Sutherland. So let's put it in context. In that time, it was very difficult. Other than the university radio station, you would not hear hip hop or, that kind of music, or to be a part of that kind of culture.
That was the beginning of the hip hop scene in Edmonton with Sports World.
Sports World was the nexus of music, dancing, socialization for a specific age demographic and that hip hop culture at that time in Edmonton.
So that scene was the beginning of it all. And then it was all about the attire. And then you'd have the ones that were dressed up in their K-way suits, and some of them had a couple of bucks to spare, and they would sport their Pumas and their Adidas and all that good stuff, and their shells and stuff like that.
The ability to roller skate was social currency. It didn't matter if you had 2 teeth in your head. If you put on those skates and you could actually do something, people would be like, oh yeah, okay, you got a pass. Oh, I saw so many people that in life, they were just kind of fumbling through life, but then they put the skates on. It was like, oh, the respect. The respect would just rot. Oh my God, you see him, Rex? Oh, he's shooting the duck. It was crazy. But that was it. And then what ended up happening was, like I said, that was social currency. Breakdancing became social currency.
If you went to Sports World every, Friday night and Saturday night, you're gonna get some kind of show from, normally it was roller skating, and then it turned into breakdancing.
I mean, they were busy on a regular basis because of roller skating, but breakdancing made them bigger. It was very well attended, especially on the weekends. It was packed.
We'd all meet up, right? And then to be like different groups, we'd battle it out. We'd take out this group, next group that wants to beat you, they'd have to come into Sports World. It's kind of like you owned Sports World, right? You owned the roller rink. So if you want to take out this crew, you got to go there and take them out.
So for a while, when we were dancing and battling, we'd go to each rink, and each rink had a crew. So that crew at that rink, we battled that crew.
I was at Sports World the first time I saw somebody do footwork. Alistair Matthew and Dindo. The first time I saw them was at Sports World, and we were all just hanging out there. And it evolved from there. Pretty soon there were breakdancing competitions. You'd go there every Friday and Saturday night. They had all night things. Like you would be there as a teenager all night, literally all night until 6 a.m.
The late night skates, we'd have like competitions. I used to be shy back then, but people would like try to come up and battle you. So you do it. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Sports World was really a place where we could come, especially in the winter. You can't break dance outside in the winter.
A lot of times we go there, we didn't even roller skate. We're just talking, moving around the crowd, just talking, trying to impress people just by being there. I'd almost say 3-4 generations worth of people went through there, and nothing but love.
Black kids growing up in Edmonton and I'm pretty sure you can talk to all of them. You know, they were probably 1 and 2 in every class in every school, right? So, and when you're learning history and a lot of things that go on in school, they don't see themselves. They learn all about Europeans. they learn about a lot of things they don't learn about themselves, right? So in this situation, I think they saw themselves and they saw one another and they saw their potential of what they could be. And not only that, they saw appreciation.
I would imagine that in the States, there was a lot of different shows and movies and programs for young black kids to be able to do and be part of, like go to the community center and in your culture, block parties. But we never had anything like that. We never even heard our own music on the radio.
It was fascinating because at that particular time when Michael Jackson was so hot, all of us people seemed to become relevant after that, you know? And if you did moves, you were breakdancing or whatever, you were kind of accepted differently because Michael Jackson did something like that. Everybody loves Michael Jackson, right?
Previous to that, you didn't have white kids that would idolize, black people at all. But during the 80s and 90s, that flipped over, where a lot of white kids would idolize people like Michael Jordan or Michael Jackson. It flipped at that point in time, and I think it was just also because it was just exposure.
Now, people that wouldn't talk to you, they want to talk to you. You know what, Darren? I'm just thinking, you look just like Michael Jackson. I just want to say, oh my God. I remember thinking to myself, you crazy, I don't look anything like Michael Jackson, but okay, yeah, it's probably the hair, but it opened up doors. And as that morphed into or evolved into hip hop culture, it was good to be black, right? I'm telling you, it was good to be black. The assumption was, it's probably shiftless and probably gonna rob you or something. The assumption now when they saw you is like, I wonder if that guy could dance. He looks like he'd be a really good break. I wonder if he can do the moonwalk. These are the assumptions, right? It was something more positive.
This culture brought every culture together. Filipinos, whites, blacks, Europeans, whatever, indigenous, especially indigenous. It brought so much to the table, right? What hip hop did was brought people an area of belonging. Like they belonged to this culture and this group and this thing, this movement. And they could exercise their creativity, and their artistic nature, whatever that was.
Look at Ray Dean. Fantastic breaker, right? We do not care that he's a white dude. That didn't even come up once, I think, ever. That was not even a thought. It was about the music and the culture and inclusion and skill.
You think of the word of acceptance, and the one thing I would say is I guess I was just maybe feeling fortunate that they accepted me into, a predominantly, if you were going to say black culture. It just felt, I would say it's just special to be there.
There was racism. I remember being told or been asked numerous times, what are you doing with all those guys? What are you doing with those guys? And I've just been like, they're my friends. I didn't think what you were thinking, because I don't think like you, right? Like I think differently, right? I just like, they're my friends. And now you're not.
I think one of the beautiful things about that culture was that people were accepted for people, not only just for their skills, but but who they are as well. Not only what they do, but who they are. And we could probably use a lot more of that in the world today.
You didn't really think about it like that. It was just, oh, this guy's good. Didn't care if he had polka dots on his skin. If he was good, he was just good. That was it.
as far as any definitive moment when Untouchables broke up, I couldn't tell you, man. It just kind of flowed back out, like I say.
The cats that were navigating this, spearheading this, they had like one cat had like, I don't know, he had lots of kids, man. He had kids, you know, and they were out of high school. So they were adulting as best they could, but they still had one foot in the hip hop world.
We were doing this to win the competitions. We wanted to represent what I considered to be real hip hop, real breakdancing, and we wanted to represent the city. And when it just looked like didn't matter what we did or how good we were, that we just weren't gonna win. You know, some of us lost interest. I did, again, I had a family to support and things like that. So me going and doing this sort of stuff was taking time away from my family.
Dave and the guys got older and they were getting jobs and working and moving on with their lives and sort of thing. You know, and we were still like steeped into, we want to be like the guys in New York. We want to be like those people in New York. We're going to dance, we're going to write graffiti, we're going to do all that, right? So, yeah, I mean, it was still, and remember, I was a lot younger. So coming up, like we were pushing the breaking hard.
Barry has his career. We were kids. We didn't have any of that. I think that was just it. It was just a natural, you know, kind of life progression. And then the rest of us that were ready to keep kind of moving on, we saw a benefit in adding new members and collaborating.
In order to make this thing move, in order to have it grow in the direction that they wanted it to grow, and to have that kind of capacity, one foot's not enough. You gotta have 2 feet in this thing. And that's really hard to do when you're raising kids and you got bills to pay, and you know, you are the one that will be financially responsible for what's happening with this group. That's a lot to ask for people.
Also, I think that things were changing in hip hop at that time too. So, you know,
I guess that's part of you know, being at the beginning or at the genesis of something. Certain things aren't in place, and the journey begins and carries on to get them in place for those that come after us. So.
I didn't realize till I came to this thing how unique this is. Like I didn't know, none of us knew that we were doing something nobody else had ever done. Nobody's ever gonna know about it unless this gets told. I don't know, that gave me goosebumps. It's kind of special to be part of something like that.
Those people in the game, those people that were performing, those people within that culture, yeah. Untouchable Crew that was a pretty significant time in the narrative of hip hop culture in Edmonton. Joe Public, I don't think most people knew about Untouchable Crew and the potential that it held.
You know, until you actually called us here, I didn't know. I didn't know what it meant. I mean, to us, it was just something we were doing at the time. It was something we enjoyed doing, something I thought we were pretty good at, and we weren't thinking legacy.
When you get somebody that organizes something together, we weren't there for violence. We weren't there to incite any kind of riots or anything like that. We were about just expressing happiness, expressing, this is what we can do. What do you think? You know?
I think if anything, I think we helped transcend the art form and take it to another level, which is what I think all you can really ask of yourself to do if you're a person who likes to build things and make things better.
If it were not for them, I think things would be much different. I think the landscape of hip-hop in Edmonton would be much different. I really do.
I think it represented the coming together of what was at the time the peak level of talent in the city. And out of that, you know, other groups formed with high levels of talent, which pushed the art form even further.
I think if you want to know where you're going, you have to know where you came from. That was the only crew, you know, of that style that was able to do what we did. So what's our legacy? We're the originals.
It just shows how a movement can begin in the least likely of places.
Each individual combined together to become one brotherhood, one unit. And how we bonded very fast and became really good very fast, you know, and then it just kind of faded away. But yeah, remarkable story.